Good evening or morning or whatever time of the day it happens to be. Welcome one, welcome all to the Writer's Black podcast. I am one of your hosts, Greg Nikas, and this week we've got a really fun show in store for you guys. Taylor and I are joined by horror author and fellow Adams Eagle class of 2014 representing Kassidy VanGundy. She is joining us today to talk all about her career as a horror author, her inspirations for her particular style of writing, building a network and support group with some other wonderful creatives, and navigating the struggles of mental health as an author. If you're liking the Writer's Black podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, did you know you can get the podcast one day early over on our Patreon for absolutely free? That is patreon.com/writersblackpod. You can get the podcast one day early, as well as access to just some fun little bits of bonus content, deleted stuff from the episodes, maybe some writing pieces. Just head on over and show your support if you can. That is patreon.com/writersblackpod. All right, guys, without further ado, let's get into the conversation with Kassidy VanGundy. The first question that I have for you is, tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your unique writing style or genre preference and kind of how that all got started.
Okay, so at first when I started writing, I was doing something like more in dark fantasy where I was like 19. I started my first book and I wanted it to be like emo, like Percy Jackson, but I took a break from writing for years. I didn't pick up that book again till the pandemic. Lately, I've ventured a lot more into horror, and all my short stories are predominantly horror, or some hardcore horror fans might call it more dark fantasy too, but I think I'm scary. So I've noticed recently that a lot of my bread and butter tends to be either tech-focused horror or like nostalgic things, like twisting something that's familiar and loved by so many people. I have all these like new projects I want to do on the back burner, but that will be for like a future date. I really want to experiment more with certain themes in the future, but right now that's what I'm doing.
With your love of horror and dark fantasy, what was kind of the catalyst for that? What got you started down that path originally?
I grew up with a sister very close in age to me. She's my younger sister, and we're only 20 months apart, but she is like an emo goth queen. Because we're so close in age and we shared a room, we'd always do stuff together. And especially when you're the kids of divorce, you like cling together very tightly. So like our comfort moments were always watching like really scary stories and Bad Girls Club. So like that is kind of the bread and butter. But also, I mean, I was like a Goosebumps kid growing up. Like my mom was a librarian, and that's kind of like what I really delved into and the franchise that really stuck with me. So yeah, there's this spooky side to me, and I think because horror does such a great job tapping into like social commentary and the lifeblood of what goes on at given generations, that's why I'm really drawn to it as a genre. Horror is such a great way to explore and play with society's values at a given time.
No, I love that. I'm a huge horror fan, and that's actually some of where I want my writing to go, is more horror/sci-fi. And I think it's underestimated, honestly, a lot of genre fiction in general, very underestimated just how useful it can be for so much like understanding of who we are as human beings.
Especially right now, because I feel like we're living in such turbulent times with everything, that escapism through fiction is definitely important. I know horror is one. I feel like it's a great time. It's not a great time, but it's a good time for that kind of an outlet. The fact that you've been able to take that and to turn it into so many different pieces and works. Such as your Cursed Images or Cursed Fates. Which one came first?
Okay, Cursed Fate came first. And I know it's so confusing because I'm not creative with titles. But Cursed Fate came first. The whole book really came as like a kind of a dare from this guy I was seeing at the time, who's now my husband. He gave me a dare to be like, okay, you can write whatever book you want, but it has to be called Cursed Fate, and the main character has to be called Vincent. And I was like, okay. And that was literally the catalyst to like everything. So technically he picked up the title. And then when it came to the short stories collections, I mean, we were, again, trapped inside during the pandemic. I was really nostalgic, and I kind of missed, like, early 2000s internet and, like, all the kind of weird stuff you would find, like, as a youngin', just, like, exploring. And that's where Cursed Images came from, because I started looking at these old memes that, like, out of context, didn't even make sense, were weird and bizarre. And I was like, okay, I want to take this feeling and make it, like, a whole thing, like, a whole collection, a whole kind of like, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, or, like, Guillermo del Toro does a lot of, like, episodal short horror story things on Netflix. And I wanted it to feel like that, but, like, girly pop 2000s weird girl aesthetic.
And you've gotten several pieces submitted into different short story compilations that are not just yours.
Yeah, again, I'm an indie author, and so a lot of times indie authors, some of them put together collections on their own to kind of uplift voices in this really small niche community. And so I participated in a lot of those, and a lot of those stories have still been either about technology or about something nostalgic. I found little homes for things as well, and anthologies I'm really proud of. And a lot of them also have like a charity component to it. So like the proceeds from a certain anthology will go towards like, I did one that was like inspired by the man versus bear meme. And all the proceeds from that went to Take Back the Night. So that was really cool.
Do you have a favorite charity that you've represented through one of those projects?
We've done Take Back the Night. And that's one that stands out the most. But I think like something more recent that I've done, because even like in-person events, like I did Slay the Lake up in Wisconsin. And that was like basically an event where there was a bunch of authors there selling books and a mix of other things. But a lot of the money that we raised from that went to the LGBTQ Center of County. So I like doing stuff like that too. And we're actually going to do another event in Chicago, raising money for the same organization, but it's just going to be a little bit closer to home in Chicago than up in Kenosha. So yeah.
I have a question. Like, how do you keep motivated, especially getting that first one done? How did you get yourself to keep going?
Actually, writing my first book, I was in a really, really, really dark place. I did not handle the pandemic very well at all. I had just graduated from grad school. I was trying to find a job, and of course that wasn't happening. And the degree I had was in international studies and diplomacy, and the State Department shut down. So all my plans went out the window. And I had to do a lot of wrestling with myself, being like, okay, well, now what? I was newly married. My husband came over on the K1 visa. So at first he couldn't even work. Pre-pandemic, we were living off of my TA salary. So a girl was stressed. And I think it was just kind of this thing where it was almost like, okay, like therapy's great. I also went to therapy, but writing is like what is making me feel like I'm achieving something in that moment where nothing else was kind of going right. And as long as I'm doing something for myself that makes me feel good, then something better will happen in the future, if that makes sense.
And we talk a lot about like burnout just because life seems to be too heavy sometimes, and those creative outlets, sometimes they work great and sometimes they're adding just fuel to the fire. Would you say that would be your biggest example of pushing through the burnout, is getting through the pandemic and getting through that project?
I think so, yeah. So the way my brain works is that unfortunately my self-worth is tied to achievements, which is not good. Yeah, exactly. It's not good. And so I've always been, and I'm the eldest daughter, so like that also is like a layer of that. So I feel like if I'm not succeeding, then I will not receive love, which of course is not true. But it's wired my brain in a way to be like, okay, well, I'm going to just do it and just be like that. When I wasn't succeeding in the pandemic, or when that was the first time where I just didn't really have things go according to plan, and I had to reevaluate my whole value system and all that stuff. So I think that was probably my biggest like slump. Like I still experience periods of like procrastination, especially when I'm getting to the end of a project, because I feel like the endings are always the hardest. So I still do that. But again, a lot of it has to come with like me checking in my brain and being like, okay, like, do we need self-care right now? Like, do we need to just go take a walk? Do we need to like get inspired actually? Or is it just we're scared to actually end it? Like, what's this conversation? And I've learned how to talk with myself a lot better. And getting diagnosed with a mood disorder was really helpful too, because now that I am medicated, I've noticed that it is so much easier for me to be productive.
Yeah, it does help to have kind of a name to a face with things like that. I've discovered in my travels. When it comes to that fear and that negative self-talk, do you have any tricks for kind of kicking yourself into gear and getting out of those moods?
Yes, but like also like I'm not an expert at that, because I even now I got a review back and there was like one small critique in it and I thought about it for days and I was like, no, I'm not the best. But I also tell myself that like sometimes I'll see something get popular or get picked up, or like see something on TV that everyone thinks is amazing and I watch it, I'm like, oh, that's garbage. So I tell myself, if they can do it, then I can do it.
When I was a teacher at Notre Dame, it was part of my grad program, one of the first things I'd ask my students is like, tell me about your favorite books and genres and things like that. And then they would list some of the authors that I have lots and lots of issues with. There's currently one who's always on the top list right now, particularly in romance.
Stephanie Meyers.
That's a different story. But no, a different writer. I have a lot of issues with their writing in general. I'm trying not to be an elitist little jerk, too, because I love genre fiction, and a lot of, like, literature are very against genre fiction, but I'm also like, there's crap. Okay, so there is crap out there. We got to be honest about that. So sometimes when I see those people like making millions of dollars or getting a Netflix deal, I'm like, are you kidding me right now? I think it's like the indie writers, the ones I'm reading, and I'm like, these are the people who their stuff should be like promoted, and I'm like, so yeah, it drives me insane. A lot.
I also think that there's this like idea that success is tied to capital gains or like capitalism, or that something that is valued has to be something that people quantify as like a valuable good. But that's not how art works, unfortunately. And you're right, there's a lot of voices that are getting skipped over by folks just because they're marketable and sellable, not the quality of their art, if that makes sense.
We're in a weird position, it feels like, in a lot of cases, because you look at these big companies, like production companies, let's just say, that are doing movies and TV shows, and it's like, what can we do? Okay, well, let's do another superhero movie. I don't care what it's about. Just a lot of big explosions, big budget, big priority, whatever. Okay, and for TV shows, what if we made Archie comics but dark? You know, as much as it sucks to say, like, there aren't original ideas, it does feel like those ideas may exist, but they're not being pushed. It's discouraging. It's really discouraging. It's like, oh, well, I guess, why write my thing?
I mean, it's hard. Like, I get that too. For me, it's like, I'm in a very privileged position saying this, like, you know, because I'm putting out this stuff and I'm starting to like bud my own little career, but I'm still very much supported by my husband and his work. I wouldn't want to do anything else, like, regardless of what the temperature is, because I'm going to be so for real. We're living in such a weird political time, and people are purposely trying to make the art suck. So it's like my conspiracy theory brain, in very rare instances, is people are making bad media on purpose to hire an audience or to convince an audience that they don't need art. And so I'm in a position where I can afford to say no and keep making things in spite of that. That's like my rock anthem, is to keep making things out of spite. But not everybody has that. Like, not everybody can afford to do that all the time. A lot of people have multiple jobs. And then if they have the energy, maybe they can make art. But then you're right. It's easy to feel devalued when you're seeing people like prioritize certain things that are straight up garbage on purpose.
And coming from my like writing program, which would I tell people to go do a writing program? Not after my experience, no.
Really?
It depends on each program, because I've heard some programs, and I've even like contacted different like programs, and some of them have been incredibly kind and like so community oriented, and then there are some, usually the top programs, that are just so, you need to produce. You need to be getting as many awards. You need to just constantly be focusing on how you can just make yourself better in their eyes. Not in your own eyes as a writer, but you just have to constantly be better. And how can you network in a way that's going to make the right people happy? And it drained my soul. So I guess my question for you is about community. How have you built up like a writing community?
That's my favorite thing. So thank you for asking. And I wanted to know more about your experience in a writing program, because I did not partake in that. So I don't know what it looks like on the other end, where people like have the literary fiction in the front of their mind. Because for me, most of my community really did start on like Instagram, and it was like people following each other and just encouraging each other. And honestly, like when I started writing, I was looking for community so badly in Boston, but like Boston was so elitist when it came to even just like, I don't know, not just like getting your books in stores, but like even finding other creative spaces or other authors. Everybody was like very cautiously to themselves, and a lot of the writing spaces were like, you have to pay like $300 a month just to be able to like use our computer here. And I'm like, bro, what? So that sucked. But when I moved back to the Midwest, it was so much easier to find other Midwestern authors. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky enough to have Instagram friends that lived in this area, and that's kind of how I found out about local events and started applying to like Midwestern events. And honestly, Midwestern people are so much more willing to like connect with one another here, which I really, really appreciate, and like night and day difference. By doing more public appearances too, like you meet other readers, but you to meet other authors, and you can put face to maybe like a screen name or whatever for the first time. And it's really cool. And it's just like a practice of putting yourself out there. And there's like, even in Chicago, there's a nonprofit here that teaches writing classes for people who want to be writers. And some of their classes can still be expensive, but they have scholarships and stuff. And every now and then I'll like dip my toe into there. I've met instructors who do teach in college. And some of them have been nice. I felt that Midwesterners, and especially like queer women, will hold each other stronger than like any other community I've been in. So they've been great to me, and I love them so much.
I agree with that. Like my grad programs, writing programs particularly, are very interesting because they're very insular and like exclusive. And I didn't like that. I was looking, when I signed up, I was looking to community build, and that's a lot of how my writing gets started. I love that. I wanted to meet other writers. I wanted to talk, learn from them, all that jazz, build little communities. That is not really what happened in my writing program. And as I learned, very common in writing programs to feel very excluded, to feel very competitive, like attacking each other all the time to get the best spots. So a lot of my writing community online, Twitter, which I refuse to call X, it is never going to be X to me.
It's Twitter.
Twitter, it used to be a super major hub for writers, and that's where a lot of writers build a lot of their communities. But now for me, Instagram is a huge one where I'm constantly trying to connect with other writers. And actually, I don't know if any of you know her, but she went to Adams. Her name's Alize.
Maybe. It sounds familiar.
She's amazing. She isn't writing, but she's reviewing books, particularly romance. Romance is her thing, and I
follow her on Instagram. Yes.
Yes. My dream is to become a world-famous romance writer, which was not encouraged in my writing program, by the way. I just kept seeing she was going to all these conferences I'd never heard of. My writing program didn't tell me. The only thing that my writing program told me about was the prestigious writing conferences that are tons and tons of money, and just things I couldn't afford, couldn't really make connections at, wasn't super great. And I just messaged her on Instagram. I was like, hey, how do you know about all this stuff? How are you getting to review all these books? And she was so kind, literally broke things down. Here's the some of the top conferences that I love attending if I can. Here's some people I've met. And just because of that, that has opened so many doors. And so I'm just I'm a huge lover of social media and Midwest friendliness and how we've all connected. Yay, Midwest! Except for Notre Dame.
What are those networking events like, out of curiosity? I think the closest I have to that is going to Comic-Con and doing panels there and meeting other nerdy people that are doing panels and whatever else. But what's the environment like in those?
It's literally very similar to that. You're vending at a table the same way you would see an artist alley at a Comic-Con. That's kind of what my author events are, is where we're all just vending at different tables. You end up sitting next to people, you end up talking. It's kind of hard because I feel a lot of authors are naturally kind of introverted. And so networking's not the same as you would think of business networking. Half the time it's hey, how you doing? But it's a similar thing where it's just everybody will be vending in the same space. So when there's downtime, because you set up a little bit before, or maybe there's not an influx of readers or whatever, you can talk to folks that way.
I love that spaces like that exist, and that people, despite all the nastiness out there, it's there are people that can just be kind and just be nice and, can share information and figure it all out. So Kassidy, you're not just an author, though. You are also a YouTube aficionado. Can you tell us a little bit about your... No? You disagree with that title?
I try, but thank you. I appreciate it.
Can you tell us a little bit about your channel and kind of how you're using your YouTube platform, as well as I believe you're also... I've seen you also on TikTok doing this to kind of boost your writing and boost your voice a little bit?
Yeah, I need to get better at TikTok. I love YouTube. I'll preface this. I started YouTube being a YouTuber in grad school as a hobby. And at the time, I wanted to talk about Pokemon content because I love Pokemon. And yeah, that was going to be my thing. It's literally just Pokemon or makeup looks, because that was still coming off the heels of the beauty YouTube era. So that was what I was going to do. And I wore a lot more makeup back then. So I would do makeup looks, a lot of Halloween makeup looks in YouTube and all that, and just kind of post about my hobbies. And then as I started writing and putting stuff out there, I realized that my life was kind of morphing into something else. So I was okay, well, let me just start incorporating what I'm up to in terms of writing on there as well. And that's when my channel actually got a little bit more popular. I still haven't hit 1,000 subscribers yet, but that's my goal for this year, is to get 1,000 subscribers.
Hell yeah.
So fingers. Yeah. It's still a goal. But I've noticed that a lot of people find value in that. You know, sometimes I'll do vlogs of like going to an event, or I'll post about my books, or I'll do book reviews on YouTube. I think the videos that I make that people will gravitate more to is like writing advice in general, because I think there's a lot of people who aspire to be authors and they're kind of looking for somebody to give them like reassurance. I don't mind being that person. So there's that. But yeah, my YouTube channel is kind of morphed into not just like personal hobbies, but also now instead of like having a traditional writer blog or writer's website, it's kind of morphed into that. Yeah. But like my name of my channel, Cutiefly, is from a Pokemon, like because there's a Pokemon called Cutiefly and my name's Kassidy the K. So I just like, but yeah.
What's your favorite evolution, if you don't mind me asking? We're getting the hard person questions now.
Oh no, it's definitely Sylveon, hands down. Like she's an icon, and I am very partial to fairy types or feminine looking Pokemon.
Is there a social media platform that you think is like the opposite of helpful? Like you think is anti-helpful or counterproductive almost to the equation? Something you've tried using before that doesn't work or it's not what it used to be?
Okay, yeah. I have it's like a kind of like a hot take opinion, but like I know you mentioned Twitter. I've never been on Twitter. I was on Threads. Honestly, that's my biggest following is on Threads, even though I don't really post as much anymore. I was posting Reddit accounts in the beginning. It was mostly authors connecting with each other on there, and it was friendly and it was great. And then it turned to what Twitter is now. It's all very divisive, like emotional, rage baity kind of things. And I just can't do that. And it's now a thing where like because I would post memes and writing stuff and it would get traction. But now it's like if you don't engage in that kind of like rage bait content, then like nobody sees it. And it's just really depressing and it makes me not want to post on there anymore, which is really sad because I used to love posting a good old meme there and people thinking I was funny for like 5 seconds. If you have like a personality that like enjoys being argumentative, that's your bread and butter. But like I don't. So it is, for me, it's counterintuitive. You can very easily have something go viral and get attention and potentially like make more sales that way. But like as a platform, it might go viral, but people will not even remember your username, like depending on what you know what I mean? So It's almost like if you want to make a lasting impression, I would recommend something else like Instagram or YouTube or something where people get a sense of who you are, you know?
That's almost kind of my issue with TikTok is that even if someone engages with your thing or if they follow you, there's no guarantee they're going to find your content again because everyone just goes by the algorithm on the For You page, which it's a very like functional algorithm, but like it doesn't show you your people. You have to go to a different tab for that, and for some people that's almost too much.
Speaking of like websites and apps and things like that have kind of got off the deep end, I don't know if any of you have looked at sometimes when I'm on Goodreads, I like to just go read some reviews. A lot of rage bait type reviews now. Like, I don't know if that's always been a thing, but I'm like, people are mean. Like, even when I really hate a book, I try to be like, I'm like, okay, an author could read this. Like, I think they should know, here are the things that I found problematic or like issues with the writing or things like that. But I also try to be a little considerate unless it's something that's deeply, deeply, deeply troubling. Like, there have been books where I've read where they were like blatantly racist and things like that. I'm like, I don't care if the author's feelings are hurt, but like, people are mean.
Yeah, and it's hard. I've found that it's always the people who have never tried themselves who have the loudest opinions on what you do. I think that is an instance for some readers who feel like they're experts because they're probably well read, or maybe they just got a lot of feelings. I don't know. But I take the same approach. Like if I'm reviewing a book, and it's hard because I'm an author too, so I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings or burn anything. So I'll normally just give star reviews unless something really sticks out to me in a positive or negative way. Or like for me, sometimes I use Goodreads as like a trigger warning list almost to kind of check some stuff out sometimes. And if something's not mentioned and I read it, I will mention it, be like, hey, by the way, there's this in it, just in case. I've had to do that with Grady Hendrix's books, unfortunately, because he's a very popular horror author. But there was one that I was like, where's the trigger for this? And I was like, here you go. But yeah, I do think too, there's this thing now where people are kind of desensitized for seeing other human beings. People aren't people to them anymore. It's more people are like the little trickster, the jester on the internet, and it's almost like we depersonalize one another so much that we feel like we can literally say anything to each other.
Yes, I feel like a lot of people are so used to being the main character in every aspect of their life, and I'm like, you really need to smack upside the head, like something to get through to them.
We wanted to take a quick break to remind everybody about patreon.com/writersbleckpod. With relaunching this podcast, we're trying to build a real sense of community. So Taylor and I decided to give Patreon a shot. acting as our kind of home base on the internet. You can get the podcast one day early, as well as just get access to some extra bonus features, some cut content for the shows, maybe a few written pieces here and there. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll do merch. I would love to make a Writer's Black coffee mug, but we need your support over on patreon.com/writersblackpod. And really, we just want to hear from you guys, so please let us know what you're liking about the show, what we can do to improve, all that good stuff over at the Patreon. You can also send us an email at writersblackpod@gmail.com with suggestions and comments and concerns and just whatever really you guys want us to talk about. All right, thank you guys for your time. Now, let's get back to the podcast. So, we talked about your two bigger projects, Cursed Images, Cursed Fate. What are your other personal projects, and then what are some other things that you're featured in that you wanted to maybe shout out?
So yeah, I have my two main books, not actually completed, like actual books, is Cursed Fate and Wicked Breed, and they're together in a series. And then I have my two short stories, which is Cursed Images, Scary Stories from a Child on the Internet. That's my most popular book by far. I think people just are there for the Y2K vibes, but that's fine with me. And then the Cursed Images Social Media Madness just came out. I'm currently working on a 90s themed anthology because I'm just kind of hopping around different decades. Right now, it's a mix of like X-Files meets Nickelodeon. And then like, yeah, other things I've been in, I like other anthologies. I've been in Zodiac themed anthologies because I'm a bit of an astrology person. So they're called Horror Scope, and they're like anthologies that go through different zodiac signs, and they've been written by different people that might be their sun sign, or it just might be one that they relate to. There's 4 installations of those. I'm in 2 out of the 4 of those. I've been in Lurk, which is a short story collection about AI. I wrote a short story in that one that was about how there was a rumor going on for a while that Facebook was going to keep dead people's profiles up so that you could communicate with your loved ones even after they passed. And so I wrote a story about that because, like, yeah, and which is a topic of conversation, right? Because now people are using AI kind of like, how does one deal with grief? Oh, I can still talk to grandma. Or I can use AI as a girlfriend, or I can use AI as a therapist, which has its own myriad of social issues. Yeah, so like it's across the board. That's kind of like a lot of stuff to kind of throw at you. But all of this is on my website at www.KassidyVanGundy.com if you want to look at some pretty book covers.
They're very nice book covers. I'll say
they are.
So my cover artist, Melina, actually lived in South Bend. I worked with her at Old Navy when I was 16. And she lives in California now, and she does like Comic Cons, and she's like a nerdy artist and does paintings. She travels across the country doing nerdy art. And I hit her up, and her and I just work so well together. She's a genius. Every time I have an idea, I send her like a mood board. It clicks for her right away. I love her use of colors. She like totally gets me. And we've kind of floated the idea of maybe one day doing a comic book thing together. But like, I would love to. I just have to find the time and schedule and like do something about it. But like, again, she's such a great creative person. And again, originally Midwestern. She's from South Bend. So she's fantastic.
Yeah, South Bend represent. What were those conversations like with your cover artist at Curiosity? Because I'm one of my goals in the next like 2 years is to write a comic book. And I have an artist in mind, but like, he does commissions. I'm always afraid to ask him for like anything, like even like just his time for that reason. What were those conversations like with your artist?
Well, Melina's great because she's more established as like an artist. She's worked with like authors before. She kind of guided me through that process a little bit more. I didn't even know. She has a portfolio. She has an Instagram presence. I initially, like when I was looking for a cover book artist, I put feelers out there. So I was like going to talk to her. And then I had a friend from college that was in our program that I originally wanted to pitch to because it was like, help a girl out. But then that kind of fell through. And one other person I was considering, but Melina got to me the fastest. She had a contract, and she explained like kind of like what her rate was, and that, you know, like she basically all the business aspects she kind of handled. And then when it came to creative stuff, I kind of over explained my book more than I needed to, truthfully. I kind of gave her a brief synopsis of what it was about, the kind of mood I wanted, and the kind of colors I was thinking about, and what I kind of wanted, like in terms of major icons. And then so she would take that and then come back to me in a couple months and then have like rough drafts and occasionally check in and see like, hey, do you like this? Do you like how this looks? Do you like how the colors work here? And it's a very, like with her, it's very cooperative, which I really appreciate. because I myself am not a digital artist, but I like to think I have a good eye for aesthetics. Her and I just kind of just feed off each other very, very well. And it gets to the point where I'm like, okay, I want Galaxy print obnoxious, go. And then she can make it in a way that looks very balanced. So I really, really appreciate her. She's great.
Galaxy print obnoxious.
Love it.
Yeah, that was the inspo for the 2010s ones, because all I can remember was those damn leggings that were Galaxy print. And I was like, I want that on the background of a book, but like make it like not ugly. And she's like, I got you.
Well, Kassidy, we have a few recurring segments on the podcast as we kind of start to wind things down a little bit. One of them, I want you to picture here's my really cheesy intro for it. Okay. You're on a train, right? You're going on a big old trip somewhere. You hear the choo choo. You feel the brakes kind of squeal, and you're pulling on in to the procrastination station. Right. What is something kind of with your current project, something big, something small? What has been like a procrastination trigger for you recently? What's something that you've been kind of struggling to kind of push past in that regard?
Well, okay. I was working on a short story. I was feeling good. I was getting a lot of chunks done. And then I had an injury and I couldn't write for like a whole week because I busted my elbow at the gym trying to be healthy. So that sucked. So I lost all my momentum, and then I was trying to write again. And I just felt like I just kind of, for me, moods unfortunately are a thing. And for me, if I'm in like a low mood, it's even hard for me to really motivate myself to do like day-to-day tasks. So I felt like I couldn't get my groove back. And then on top of that, I was also trying to work out an ending, which again for me is where I procrastinate. And it's because you just want something like so satisfying. With endings, I feel like more than other parts of the story, you really have to have even revisions of your ending before you write something down that works. And so I was really struggling with that because I was disappointed that I lost my momentum. I was disappointed I hurt myself. And I was just kind of disappointed that it wasn't panning out the way I thought it would be initially. And so sometimes I find myself being like, I'll just go on Pinterest for like 5 minutes. And like, really? And then I'll get back into it. Or I'm like, oh, well, I'll just go make lunch and then I'll get back into it. Or I'll just go do, like, I try and negotiate with myself. But I just have to remind myself that, like, just get it on the page and you can always come back to it later.
Kassidy, just real quick, what have you been reading recently?
Ooh, great question. Okay, I have a TBR pile that has like 12 books at any given time. What did I just finish recently? Oh, something I was disappointed with. Oh no.
I like disappointed books just as much as books you're really excited about, so I'm very in.
Okay, the last thing I just finished is called Don't Let the Forest In. It's a YA horror, and I was very excited about it because it's dark fairy tale meets dark academia setting, and I'm really interested in ecological horror right now. It's like the exact opposite of what I do. It was the most emo thing I've ever read, which again has an audience. It's YA, like it has an audience, and it's a very tragic queer gay romance, but I personally felt like it romanticized a lot of harmful behaviors. And if you're marketing to YA, you have to be mindful about that. So it didn't read well to me. And I was looking at the author's page and like how they were marketing it. And I was very disappointed because the way they were marketing it is like, oh, our silly little boys, when one of them has like an eating disorder, is like actively not doing well. But our silly little guys, oh my God, I love them. I ship them, blah, blah, blah. And these are teenage boys who one's having a psychotic break and the other one is constantly getting hurt. Like it's graphic. And so I was like, maybe that's the right marketing tone. So that's why I was personally disappointed. Again, as somebody who writes some stuff that could be like violent, or especially I do write short stories that feature children. Like, and again, that's me working on my own shit. But I always tell myself that I'm going to treat that in the most sensitive manner I can. And I think that's why, like, I've gotten feedback from readers that a lot of stuff I write reads a little bit more sad sometimes because of the emotions that I put into it. So I was disappointed in that, which sucked. But right now I'm kind of circling through a couple different books. I have one I'm going to plug for my, because she's another indie author in Chicago. Her name's Mo Medusa. It's called Feeding Lucy. I literally just started this, but Mo is a lesbian author here in Chicago, and she's starting her own like disabled lesbian group. If people are interested in that, she's great. She's done events with me, and then I also am working on Lord of the Flies, and I have a nonfiction book literally right in front of me as well, The Zoologist's Guide to the Galaxy, which is like biologists speculating what alien life would look like on another planet based off of animals here on Earth, which is just a silly, goofy read. But
I love
yeah,
that
that's what
so
I'm
much. Okay.
I love that you touch upon, like, usually when I tell people, oh, I'm really into romance and writing, oh my gosh, the bias and a lot of, like, ideas of what romance is. But I mean,
Yeah.
everyone has standards within what they're reading. Like, there's some people who are just reading to escape, and that's great. I am not. I care so much about the plot, the quality writing, the characters. I need to believe in them. Like, I'm not going to believe in their love story if I don't believe in them. So, like, every person approaches it differently, but there are a lot of very negative tropes, a lot of popular books that are constantly pushed towards younger and younger people that should not be pushed. I'm thinking of Twilight. Like when growing up, this man was watching her while she slept, and we all were like, romantic. And now that I'm a grown woman, I'm like, that is not something that should have been okay in any way, shape, or form. So I'm very cognizant of that, especially when I write, but also when I read other people's writing. I read reviews. I need to, because I'm like, there are a lot of trigger warnings that are not included. And I'm sorry, but I refuse to read any romance that has rape. It's one thing if it's just like mentioned, like this happened, but if particularly graphic scenes, I will not. So I have to be very, very meticulous about what romance I read, because some romance writers will just be like, oh, by the way, here's a rape, but it's actually a good thing because they end up in love, and I'm like,
that's called Stockholm Syndrome. There was a video I saw on TikTok, I think I was going to send you, Taylor, and I completely forgot about it. Have you ever seen the videos of, like, Friends, but they've taken out the laugh track, so it's kind of, like, low-key, like, unsettling? It was Twilight re-edited as a horror film, and it was literally, it was just the Edward being a grade A creep for the whole thing.
My thing is, like, I don't want to, like, back then that was what I needed to get through life. I'm not even going to lie. Twilight and, like, all those books and movies I watched, like, they got me through some tough teenage years where my home life was terrible. However, that does not mean that as an adult now that I cannot critique some of the very harmful things. Like, I think of the Native American community that she wrote about, and they have not seen a dime of the residuals and things like that. And I'm just like, there are so many things we are allowed to critique, and we should. Like, Edward, they were not a good couple. So many issues. I think of that depression period she went through, and I'm just like, oh, that baby girl needed help. Hopefully we'll do better for future generations.
And it's hard to. I feel like this kind of gets into art versus the artist kind of thing. But like Stephanie Meyer was like super Mormon, and like a lot of those things are embedded in Twilight. So it's hard to separate certain like belief systems that she might have personally had from like that meant she wouldn't see as wrong, right? But then like anybody else outside of that community would be like, girl, what the hell?
Red flag.
I refuse to separate the art and the artist. I'm sorry. If a Nazi wrote the world's best book in the world, I refuse to, like, push off the fact that they're a Nazi.
That's been a conversation that I've got dragged into, I think, twice now in the last couple of days, or last week, I guess now, because of the Hulk Hogan dying stuff. Like, yes, the man did a lot of things for the wrestling industry back in the 80s that were great. He also did a lot of terrible things for the industry with, like, union busting and, you know, just harming fellow, young wrestlers on the rise. Also, just grade A racist. I was never a Hulk Hogan guy. My biggest exposure was my dad watching his VH1 show in, like, 2005. So I never had, like, the same love for him that everyone else has. So I'm like, yeah, he wasn't this important of a figure that you could just overlook all these, like, really shitty things he did. Not just as a wrestler or, a businessman person, but also, like, as a husband, as a father, as a human being. Like, I can definitely separate the art from the artist on that one.
Yeah, I always feel, this is how I feel as a creative, and feel free to disagree with me, but I feel like even when you're making something, there's part of your subconscious that's in it, no matter what. Even if you're intentionally like, okay, this is just a fun hee-hee kind of moment. I know I've had that experience, but I've written something that I thought was fun hee-hee, and it turned out to not be. When I read it back, I'm like, oh, okay, that's this coming out. And that's what keeps me so much on one side of the art versus artist thing, because if that comes out subconsciously, then like you cannot detach yourself from your art. You just can't. And I actually have it's not related to art, but it's somewhere. Oh yeah, it's called First Dads. It's dated because it doesn't include Trump, but it is a book about. I'm gonna pull it out. So I'm so annoying. I do this all the time. I'm sorry.
That's what this podcast is for.
Okay, great. But this is First Dad's Parenting and Politics from George Washington to Barack Obama. And it talks about the parenting styles of each U.S. president and compares that to certain policies they enacted during their terms. And there's often overlap between how they behaved as fathers and how they treated the country and like decisions they made for the country. So even that, like, can you separate the politician from the family man? I would say no.
That is a brilliant idea for a book.
It's so good. I loved it. I could pick this up in college. I was like in undergrad and I saw this. I was like, I have to read it.
It's on Audible. It's on Audible. I can read it with my ears. I think that will kind of bring us to the end of the podcast here, Kassidy. Do you have anything else you want to shout out? Any upcoming events? I know you've got a couple coming up in the fall.
Sure, yeah. Okay, so concrete events coming in the fall. It's the weekend of the 16th in October. I'm going to be doing an event with Spooky Frog. They're like a alternative horror goth multi-marketing thing. But Spooky Frog's putting on an event up in Wisconsin again. I'm going to be there vending and selling books with a bunch of other Midwestern horror authors, but there's also going to be a DJ and small businesses there. We're going to be at a hotel kind of thing, so it's kind of like a convention, but kind of like a horror party too. So if you're like an alternative kind of person, you'll probably like that. And then in November, we're having another, I mentioned it already, we're having another Slay the Lake event here in Chicago at a brewery. I'll be vending there as well with a bunch of other Midwestern horror authors.
Awesome. So definitely if you're in those areas, go check out Kassidy. I assume that's all on your website, KassidyVanGundy.com?
It will be. I've been working on an events page now that I'm actually getting invited to things. That's next on the website list. But it's all up on my Instagram too. Okay. If you want to follow me at Writing with Cass.
Definitely. We'll definitely link all that stuff, and be sure to check out all of Kassidy's books and all their fun writing projects and all the cool stuff that is on the horizon. Thank you, Kassidy, so much for joining us on the Writer's Block podcast. This journey that she has been on with writing, and it's so cool to see someone that we went to high school with who has flourished the way that Kassidy has. She was an absolute treat to talk to, and you guys should really go check out her website, KassidyVanGundy.com, or find her on social media at Writing with Cass. Next week, we'll have another super fun guest. Young adult horror author Ryan LaSala is joining us on the podcast to talk about his latest work, Dead of Summer. We'll also talk about the upcoming big screen adaptation of his book, The Honeys, and his inspiration to promote queer representation in his work.
You know, I've always loved horror stories, like as a consumer. It had never really occurred to me to write a horror until I thought of the idea for The Honeys. And The Honeys, like, it kind of starts with a really classic premise of a kid, a gender fluid kid. That part's not the classic part, but you know, a kid going to a summer camp to investigate something, you know, supernatural potentially occurring behind the veneer of this beautiful sort of Americana traditional place.
If you want to keep up with everything we're doing here at Writer's Block Podcast, you can go over to patreon.com/writersblockpod, where you can get access to the show one day early, see exclusive clips, as well as get blog posts and maybe some creative writing pieces coming up. Maybe a coffee mug. I don't know. I really want the coffee mug, guys. I really want it. Come on. To see more from Taylor, you can go to taylornoelthomas.com, and you can find me on YouTube at LegoMyGregoTV. Once again, thank you so much to Kassidy VanGundy. You can find her at KassidyVanGundy.com. That'll do it for us this week on the Writer's Block podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and until next time, keep writing.